Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first Primetime Fantasy Pod. I'm your host, Liam Harris. Got my co-host, Ben Peterson here today. We've got a special guest, Luke Harris. This is a long time coming. We want to do this for a long time. Finally got the right people to do it. Why don't you guys tell everyone why we should listen to you when it comes to fantasy football?
All right, I'll start off. I'm Luke. I'm Liam's brother, Primetime's brother. I love fantasy football. I'm a huge Packer fan as well. I go to Marquette. I've been playing fantasy football for 10 plus years now. I'm a fantasy football champion. Beat these two guys 2 years ago in utter domination of my league, pretty much. So that's what I'm known for. So got some good insights and excited to share them here.
And then I'm Ben Peterson. I've known these guys since we were little. We've been playing basketball, football, whatever it was, talking crap, all the whole shebang. But I was a former winner as well. My recent luck has been pretty poor, piss poor honestly. Lost the league 2 years ago, and so we're just hoping to get you guys some really funny, engaging content about fantasy football, and I really hope that this is the start of something special.
Me too, man.
You guys ready to freaking hop in?
It's gonna be a lot of
Let
fun.
me, I didn't even get to introduce myself. My name's Liam Harris, said it before. I go to Marquette as well. I created Primetime FFGB 2 years ago on Twitter, just writing articles, making rankings, trying to immerse myself in the community, and I love it. So I'm trying something new with the podcast. We'll see how it goes. So let's get started without further ado. First thing we're going to touch on is some training camp news. Obviously, the biggest piece of news this week was Joe Burrow. He seemed to go down with a calf strain. A lot of fantasy implications. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I came into this season, or just where we're at now, I was super high on Joe Burrow. He's honestly someone who I think has a very good chance to win MVP, and that kind of took a hit with this injury. Last year he had a great season as well. And I don't know if you guys even remember this, but he had an appendicitis or something like that, where he had his appendix removed early in the training camp. So he also didn't get a full training camp last year, so I think there's a good chance that he'll be able to still be very productive. And guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, all those guys will be fine. I think Burrow will be back on the field by week 1. So
Yeah, Burrow's a dog. Like, come on. Who are we kidding here? Like, calf strain's not going to stop this guy from being just absolutely electric on the field. Like, you got an insane receiving corps there in Cincy. Like, I know you're high on T. Higgins. I'm sure we'll touch on that later. And this guy's going to be back, and he's going to be in prime form, and we're going to watch him in prime time all the time.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful player. I mean, what concerns me a little bit is the fact that he's not going to get that early going timing with those guys. You know, because like you said, he'll bounce right back. Like, he had the appendicitis and he figured it out. But like with a calf strain in particular, like quarterback, it worries me just a tiny bit with the fact that you look at like guys like Tom Brady or like Aaron Rodgers. They have this timing to everything. Like, the second the ball is snapped, they know exactly how many steps they have to take. They know it's just mental now. And so with Burrow, he's young, and he's obviously shown poise and everything already. But the fact that he's going to be dealing with this calf strain at the start of the season, while he's trying to figure out the timing of everything with his receivers and their routes and just everything, especially they brought in Orlando Brown as well. Like, just timing things up with the whole offense is going to be a little bit of a struggle right off the bat. And so that's my only concern, is just a little bit of that calf strain showing a time to click. So maybe a couple more interceptions at the start of the year, maybe a little less production from guys like T. Higgins, but that deep ball is going to be what's going to be right off the bat fine, because that's going to be when he's laying back there just seeing, like, all right, that's my man, Jamar. Number 1's running past.
yeah. And to add on to that, like, a calf strain's a lingering issue throughout a whole season, so that could be a problem. We've seen it with quarterbacks last year, I guess, with Aaron Rodgers. He had a toe injury. He's obviously an elite quarterback, so he can kind of work above that, but it's still, the calf strain's no joke, so got to be able to kind of manage it throughout the season, which I'm sure the Bengals and Joe will be able to do. So.
Yeah, I'm not concerned whatsoever with Joe Burrow. We've seen, like Luke just said, we've seen it with guys in the past, Aaron Rodgers did with injuries. It's not too hard to get through a calf strain as a quarterback, I wouldn't say, but just looking at the average draft positions on Underdog Fantasy, they have not changed since Joe Burrow suffered an injury. Like Joe Mixon's still going late 4th round. Jamar Chase, obviously a top 5 pick this year. T. Higgins, he's going to have a lot of upside. Jamar Chase ends up going down, but I don't think that'll be the case. We'll get more into that later. But yeah, I'm not concerned with this Cincinnati offense whatsoever. We're going to head over to the AFC East now. Garrett Wilson went down with an ankle injury, I believe it was 2 days ago. I'm not too concerned about him either. Bringing in Aaron Rodgers is going to be a big improvement for him. That whole offense is just going to see completely new horizons with Hackett and Rodgers under center. And with Wilson coming back, hopefully, I don't see this offense starting at all. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit all the points I would talk about. I mean, the one thing that's playing to Garrett's advantage for sure is that Aaron has participated in OTAs and all the off-season training camp, which is not unlike, but he just wasn't doing that the past couple years with the rookies, with the Packers and all that, for good reason. But having those reps early on, I think they'll be able to kind of tread through these tough waters. And once the season comes around, Garrett Wilson's someone that I'm really high on this year. I think he's got the top 3 upside at the position. And especially with Breece Hall coming off of his ACL tear, we know running backs off ACL tears, they can kind of start slow, but pick up. Obviously, there's been reports about Dalvin Cook maybe coming to the Jets, but for the most part, I think, like you said, with Hackett and Rodgers, I think those two, they really have a chance to light it up this year, and I'll be rooting for them a ton because I just love Aaron Rodgers as well. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. We forgot to mention this earlier. Me and my brother are huge Packers fans.
Well, as you can see, I'm wearing this crap right here. When you're in the state of Wisconsin, this is looked up, frowned upon. But, you know, I grew up a Bears fan, talked crap with these guys my entire life. Lost about every single battle of my life in that realm, except 1 year. Don't forget 2018. All right, guys.
There's some. This kid has it out for Aaron Rodgers.
But well, back in my day, I was an angry child, as you could expect from a Bears fan. But no, talking about the New York Jets and that Aaron Rodgers guy, whatever his name is. No, I look at that team, that depth chart. I mean, they brought in everybody that this man Aaron Rodgers wanted. You got Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb on this roster. They're gonna help carry that load while Garrett's getting healthy. Garrett Wilson is gonna have a Justin Jefferson-like season. I think we're all expecting that. Like, this dude is different. Like, you saw it last year with freaking Mike White playing quarterback. Like, this man, he is one of those generational type wide receivers that just gets open whenever. And so when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers who turned someone like Devontae Adams, who was a nobody, dropping passes. I remember a game back in maybe 2013 against the Bears when he was a rookie, and he dropped the easiest touchdown pass, and Rodgers is like all pissed off at him and whatnot. And then you fast forward like 5 years, and he's the best freaking receiver in the league. Yeah. Garrett Wilson has unbelievable talent. I'm not concerned about him at all. It's an ankle. Like, he'll figure it out.
Yeah. Speaking of that Jets offense, we briefly mentioned it, but they're talking about bringing Dalvin Cook. I think that would open up so many new opportunities for that offense, especially with Breece Hall coming off that ACL injury. We already kind of hit on it, so I'm not going to go further detail with Dalvin Cook. It kind of sounds like it's imminent. He's becoming a New York Jet. But with some other free agent running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, they recently visited the New England Patriots, and I am not a fan of that at all. Ramondre was my guy coming into this training camp, and it sounds like Bill Belichick and the Patriots are doing everything they can to make sure that it's committee. Fantasy players should not like that at all. Ramondre was special last season. We all saw it. He was the best running back on the roster, and there was pretty much no one else there. So I was expecting a full, pretty much duplicate of last season for this season for Ramondre. But if they bring in someone else, I don't know if I can say the same thing. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think Ramondre was a guy last year that I kind of hated on for multiple reasons. One being my brother had him on his team, and we want to not have him do well because, you know,
There's a rivalry between brothers.
But just touch on what he said. They already had last year. They had Damian Harris and Pierre Strong on in the depth chart, and obviously Damian Harris now in Buffalo. Pierre Strong showed flashes last year as a really quick kind of one-cut runner. Damian Harris, more that bruiser guy with a bunch of other qualities such as his elusiveness, which is kind of an underrated quality because he is a bigger back. But yeah, if they bring in one of these guys, Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, both bruisers, kind of just take away from that workload. We have seen in the past with Belichick offenses that it's more of a committee or a two-person backfield. So hopefully there's some fantasy relevancy there, but at the same time, like the Patriots, Mac Jones, just kind of a boring offense right now. So hopefully better things are on the horizon. Ramondre is still, for me, probably an RB2 heading into the year, even if they bring in one of those guys, but a low-end RB2 rather than high-end RB2, low-end 1.
I wonder if they weighed like
Yeah.
Zeke and Fournette when they came in. Because last year, I just pulled up the report from NBC last year when Fournette walked in at 260. Imagine seeing Leonard Fournette at 260 pounds walking into training camp. Bill Belichick is not going to have any of that. If either of these guys are out of shape, there's no shot that they're getting on this roster. Ramondre, like you guys were saying, is a absolute beast. Like that dude's different. You can't ask for more. Like he honestly kind of reminds me of like a little bit better, honestly a better version of Kareem Hunt. Like, you know, a guy that can just catch passes. Like,
It's big Brian.
and I'll never forget that play against the the Raiders last year, where when he scored that touchdown. I'm thinking, oh, Liam's gonna be so excited when he sees this on red zone. And then what? Mac Jones ruins the entire game when he fumbles. And, Jacoby Myers. Oh my gosh! And then you had Chandler Jones take that thing to the crib. Oh my gosh! But no, with these guys, I think. So I was telling Liam this earlier today. I just see that, like, and we all know this, like the fantasy world is changing when it comes to running backs. Like, you are not gonna get bell cows like we used to. Like, it's just not gonna happen. Derrick Henry was literally like the last king, if you want to put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. Ramondre Stevenson, for me, I still have him really high on like all of my draft boards because I see a guy who's going to catch a lot of passes for a team that's going to check the ball down a lot. I mean, it's Bill Belichick's offense. What has he always done? You know? And so I'm not too concerned about what's happening over there in New England. And if they want to bring in one of these fat running backs to take the cuff and, you know, take some touchdowns away, so be it. It's going to happen. I mean, I'm sure Belichick's already got someone waiting to ruin that every week for us.
Yeah.
So if it's Zeke, I'd honestly be happiest because I feel like he has more fantasy upside than a guy like Fournette does in that offense. Just from the fact that Fournette really was not that great on the goal line, was he last year? You know, and so how he got his points last year was little dink and dunks from Brady. And we don't want to see that in New England because, like we said, we got Ramondre, who's 10 times the player that Fournette is right now. And so you bring in a guy like Zeke, I think that could work, and that could be someone that would have flex upside just from a touchdown perspective. But yeah, let's hope neither of these fatsos get in there.
Yeah, just to add on to that, with talking about Fournette, and we were kind of talking about bell cows as well. Like, even go back to Fournette's Jacksonville days, the way he got points was bell cow volume and 3-yard runs, 4-yard runs, and occasional touchdowns. But if he was added into that Patriots backfield, I really don't see much upside here. Maybe he's a flex at best, but it would be horrible for Ramondre, I would think. So, yeah.
I'm excited to see what Bill O'Brien has cooking for that offense this year. This is a star who is being rethrown into the light. It's Calvin Ridley.
Let's go.
He looks absolutely unreal. There's been some clips released all across social media platforms. He looks like a freak of nature. He's getting high praise from his teammates. Evan Ingram called him a generational talent. Everyone's talking about how good the Jaguars are going to be this season, and I'm a believer, especially with Ridley. If Ridley is as good as these people are saying that he's going to be, I don't see why they wouldn't, and I think his ADP is going to skyrocket. What do you guys think?
Talk about a weak division, man. The AFC South is soft. Oh my gosh. They have nothing. The Colts are going to be they're in transition. I like Richardson as a player. I think he can be a Fields-like player. That's why they drafted him. But they're not going to be relevant.
Yeah.
And then you got the Texans, who again, they drafted Will Anderson, they drafted C.J. Stroud, but this team is very, very early on in the rebuild. They're going to be awful. You got the Titans. You got to respect Vrabel. This guy always puts a team together. So
For sure,
a team that can go out there. But you got an aging Derrick Henry. You got Ryan Tannehill, who can't keep himself on 2 feet. Like this dude is, I swear, he breaks his foot every single season. And then you bring in an old head like D-Hop, who is probably going to end up being suspended 3 weeks of the season or something. So, I don't know. I agree. I think Calvin Ridley, Jacksonville, this team is someone to like not sleep on at all. Calvin Ridley with old Matt Ryan. Literally, you saw what Matt Ryan did on the Colts last year. This man had nothing left in the tank, and Calvin Ridley had what, like a 1,400-yard season with him?
Yeah, crazy.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So yeah, you get Trevor Lawrence, another year of experience with that guy. That's draft Calvin Ridley.
For sure, yeah. I think you hit every point that I wanted to hit on. I think they're going to be contenders in the AFC. I think it's hard for me to say. I mean, for fantasy purposes, they're going to be probably a top 3 team, kind of like the Chargers from a couple years ago, even this year still. They have a great tight end, great receivers, great running back, great quarterback. But I think as far as just NFL-wise, it's going to be hard to get past those Chiefs, Bengals, Bills. But I think for sure, if Trevor Lawrence can take another step from last year, which was already a really good year, and kind of put himself in the upper echelon of elite quarterbacks, this team can make a Super Bowl in the next couple of years. I think I really do, because I think you have such an advantage with a rookie quarterback or a rookie contract quarterback. So they have a little window here where they can make some noise in the playoffs. And like Ben said, the AFC South is a pretty poor division right now, especially for this year. I kind of disagree with him on the Anthony Richardson. I think Anthony Richardson could light it up year one. I'm super high on him. And he's someone who I'm going to be targeting in my drafts. Not to go on a tangent here, but the Jaguars should have a nice path to winning a playoff game, maybe get into an AFC championship this year.
One guy we didn't even fail to mention was Christian Kirk, and we all saw what he did last season.
Yeah.
Just adding Calvin Ridley into that mix with an improving Trevor Lawrence. I think this guy is a winner for Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
Another training camp star, well known, just got traded. It's Darren Waller. Daniel Jones has been looking for Darren Waller pretty much as often as he can, and that wide receiver room is, I would say, the worst in the NFL right now. Isaiah Hodgins is a wide receiver 1, and that should say some things.
Mm-hmm.
Darren Waller currently has, I'd say, around a mid-5th round ADP. I'm expecting that to rise a little bit, especially if these reports keep coming out. And I'm very excited for preseasons right around the corner. You get to see these new guys on new teams with new systems. But I think Darren Waller's going to be very good. I don't know personally if I'm going to be targeting him, because the tight end position it's probably the least important position in fantasy.
It's in some shambles right
It's
now.
in shambles. It's Kelsey and Andrews and Hockenson.
It's really just Kelsey
It's really, yeah.
one,
Yeah.
and then there's some new guys, but
Yeah.
hopefully some guys kind of rise.
It's supposed to be Kyle Pitts, but I'm not going to go into that. But yeah, Darren Waller, I think he's going to do great, but I'm probably not going to be drafting him.
Yeah, Darren Waller was someone who kind of under the radar trade for me. He's not someone who I really have an eye on heading into the preseason, but it's hard to not hear the good things out of camp on Twitter and social media, and just hearing how they're kind of taking him off the field for practice just so he's not getting overworked from Daniel Jones, because it's clear he's his favorite target. And I kind of, when I look at the Giants from the past couple of years and just this year, I kind of compare them in a way to the Patriots, not because their play styles, but they can kind of be like a boring offense, you know? Like, you have Saquon Barkley, who's elite, and then the receivers, like you touched on, they're just nothing special or kind of just there. But I think Darren Waller in the mix and having 2 elite fantasy options, as well as Daniel Jones, who's a fantasy option for sure, it kind of adds some relevancy for me for fantasy purposes. And I thought last year the Giants, they definitely made a big shocking win when they beat the Vikings. I was not expecting. I wasn't expecting them to make the playoffs at all. No one was really, for being honest.
Yeah.
But I think Darren Waller adds to the mix there. I think they can hopefully get back to what they had 10 wins last year. They had 10 or 11 wins.
I think it was 10 to 7.
10 or 9, yeah.
Or maybe 11.
But I think just adding Darren Waller gives Daniel Jones kind of, I would say, his best receiving third he's ever had.
Yeah.
So hopefully that can help them out. And like to talk about in terms of targeting him, if I can't get a higher tight end than that, then he's definitely someone I'd be looking at in the 4th or 5th round.
So they agree.
Okay, this could just be me, and this could be a really hot take, but the New York Giants remind me a lot of the Matt Nagy Chicago Bears. Like this team,
That's a
this
great
is
comparison.
a team that had a young quarterback that teams didn't have a lot of film on from the standpoint of the kid didn't do anything. He couldn't do anything. He didn't know what to do. And so you have a guy like Brian Dabble who put together a great season, yes, but I have to see consistency from the New York Giants before I get high on players like Darren Waller. Like Darren Waller, great dude, rehab story's awesome, came back in the league, just blew it up there on the Raiders there for 2 years, but it's just worrisome for me because I see Daniel Jones and the similarities to Mitchell Trubisky are uncanny to me. Like
For sure.
obviously much bigger dude, much better runner like than Trubisky ever was, but just there's just something about that team that I don't like.
I agree.
And so Darren Waller, like you said, if he falls to me, sure, I'll take him, but I'm not going out of my way to go get Darren Waller this year just from the standpoint of I don't believe in Brian Dowell. I think the guy's a fat fluke.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, having Daniel Jones as your quarterback, he's got some fantasy relevancy, but there's zero shot you win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones. There's no chance.
I disagree. I'm going to say it here first. I think the Giants have a chance of winning the NFC East. It's kind of bold.
I thought you were going to say the NFC.
No, I don't know about that. But the Eagles are great. They pretty much reloaded. They got Jordan Davis to replace Hargrave, which is pretty unreal. But I think Daniel Jones takes a step. I really do.
I don't know. I feel like his time to take a step was probably 2 years ago.
I think he took a step last year.
Oh, he did, but
I
it
don't
was,
think he takes another one.
it was a small step. It wasn't a small step. It was a good step, but I think that's just kind of his peak. But
Yeah.
I guess then again, adding a Waller guy,
Adding Waller is big.
he could take a big step.
Like you
There's
said.
some legitimacy to that take.
Like you said, this is the best target Daniel Jones has ever had in his career. Giving him something like that, I know he's kind of getting up there in age, but Waller proved that he's a special talent when he's on the field. He stays on the field. I think the Giants can wreak havoc in the NFC East and maybe the NFC.
I don't know, man. The Giants to me, let's see here. When they played their division last year, they were 0-2 against the Cowboys. They tied the Commanders, won the other game. They're 0-2 against the Eagles. I don't see this team flipping that on us this year. Like they beat bad teams last year and snuck by in a lot of games. Think about that game against the Packers in London. Like
I remember that
they
game.
barely snuck by in that game. The Bears fumbled away a punt return. Felix Jones, I don't even want to talk about this guy, fumbles a punt return away against us. And so you have a team that had a lot of footballs bounce their way last year. Like that, I forgot about that Titans game. Didn't they win off a game-winning field goal, and then they beat the Vikings off of a game-winning field goal? Or no, the Vikings beat them. Okay, never mind. But yeah, they had a lot of things go their way last year. I really don't believe
Big
that.
reason that was Saquon Barkley, and just as we've seen with running backs, I don't know if he can do it 2 years in a row. I had him last year on my fantasy team. He was fantastic for me, but 2 years in a row, maybe we'll see. He is an elite level talent, elite prospect coming into the league. He was pegged to be one of the best running back prospects ever, so it's definitely something that he's capable of. But
Can we take a second to talk about the whole running back fiasco that's going on right now? Like, in my personal opinion, it's completely unfounded. Like, these guys, I understand, like, you're playing you're playing this sport and you're at the top of your game. But to complain about your contract situation, especially from the standpoint of you're a franchise tagged player, you're making $10 million. Like, and I get it. Like, you get beat up at that position and it's tough. But the only way that I see this working is if you shorten up their rookie contracts. Like, the only way you can make this better is you say, all right, if I draft a player like Alvin Kamara and he is an absolute stud his rookie season, sure, we could have an incentivized program to where after the third year, maybe now you have to look into giving him a contract extension. Like, maybe we could shorten up rookie contracts with running backs just from the standpoint of they don't last that long. But like, for guys like Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley to be saying these things and like willing to hold out, look what happened to freaking Le'Veon Bell. That dude was a monster, but the Steelers were right, and so will all these other teams be. You don't last long. Like, Josh Jacobs, that was probably the best season he will ever have in his career. He finally put it on display, you know? Like, we thought this was going to happen coming out of Alabama. I remember, it was our senior year of high school. One of our buddies took Josh Jacobs like the second pick overall in the draft because he was so high on him.
Shout out Bargy.
Yeah, shout out Bargy Manada. But it didn't work out because, yeah, sometimes it takes a second. So you worked your butt off and you got yourself franchise tag. Go work your butt off again and see if you get paid. Why do we have to sit here and complain about us not getting a certain dollar amount just because, oh, we neglect running backs? Like, yeah, you're replaceable. Like, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, you can draft a running back every single year and they will be maybe 1/10 of a yard, 2/10 of a yard difference. Of course, you have guys like Dalvin Cook when they're young who can break plays, and Kamara who can break plays, but it's just a replaceable position, and I just do not see this argument continuing on.
Yeah, I think just talking about high school, I remember you and I just being chopping up at the lunch table, just kind of having this conversation like, if I ever was an NFL GM and I drafted a running back, I'd let him play out his rookie contract and I'd draft another one. Because it's unfortunate, but it's true. They're very replaceable. There's a couple exceptions to that with Derrick Henry and just these just unreal athletes and all that. But yeah, it's a tough situation because you want to see these guys get paid. I mean, when you think about just the marketability of the NFL, the running backs are usually the ones, quarterbacks and running backs are out there bringing in a lot of revenue, so they should be compensated for it, but it is very replaceable, very undurable, if that's a word. Just you're getting beat up a lot, so it's not the best investment for NFL teams to make in running backs because at the end of the day, it's a business. So
you know what I say to these running backs is, look at a guy like Frank Gore. Go live your career like Frank Gore did. That guy is the epitome of what you should do as a running back. He kept his body right. He always worked his butt off, and he got paid. You know, it took a long time, but he didn't get the giant $1 million contract, but he's top 5 all time in rushing yards. Why? Because he just shut up and ran. You know, he just ran people over all day. Like, guys like Saquon Barkley, you have nothing to say. You've been injured over and over in your career. You show how fragile the running back position is. Yes, you had a great year, 1,300 yards. You were not worth $12 million that could be spent anywhere else on the roster. I would much rather pay my receivers before I would ever pay a running back. And that's just how I think the NFL is trending, and that's just how it is.
All right, moving on to the NFC North. We're going to go through each team, just give you a breakdown of each of those players and what we think they're going to do this season. So we're going to start off with the Detroit Lions. Very hyped up team for good reason. They showed out last season. They pretty much exceeded expectations, and there's not really much else that needs to be said about them. Jared Goff, I think he's probably the most underrated quarterback in the league, but I think everyone says that, so I feel like he's starting to get a little bit overrated. But I think he'll do great in 2023. Amon-Ra's coming off a career season. They just brought in Sam Laporta. Jameson Williams is gambling. Nothing you can really do about that, but he'll come back eventually. I think he's going to do fine. I think he can be a serviceable quarterback, but there are definitely better options out there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, the Lions last year, they were one of the best offenses in the league, and they supported Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jared Goff was a surprise for me as a really good fantasy option. They're probably the favorites to win the NFC North this year. It would be pretty cool to see, other than the fact that we're fans of two teams in the NFC North. But I think that offense, they just drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think has really high upside as a receiving back. We'll see how much Dave Montgomery's involved. I haven't heard a lot about how he's been doing in camp, but I know Jahmyr Gibbs has been turning heads, and he's someone who would be an exciting guy to add to any fantasy team. So that's kind of where I stand with that team. I think they're going to be great for fantasy football.
I think with the Detroit Lions, you're looking at a team that has not won the NFC North ever. 1993, I think, was the last time they won a division.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So could they break that spell? Obviously, yes, it's possible. I'm not a big believer in Dan Campbell. I know a lot of people love him. Like, I know that the whole HBO show, Hard Knocks, he's hilarious. He's like, everybody wants to see a coach like that, but at the end of the day, do I think he's a great head coach? Personally, no. And I think an underrated loss from last year was Williams. You take a guy like that out of their locker room, and I'm interested to see. Like, David Montgomery is a good replacement from a football standpoint. Similar play style, you know, dude's going to get you 3 yards in the cloud of dust and run somebody over. But I think that that's an underrated loss in that locker room, and I think that the New Orleans Saints are actually a team to look for a little bit of a switch around here in a weak NFC South.
Mm-hmm.
But sticking on with the Lions, I mean, Jared Goff, you're right. I mean, he's overlooked. He's had some great seasons. I mean, he played in the Super Bowl. He knows how to run an offense, that's for sure. But my only problem with the Detroit Lions is just track record. I kind of like the same thing with the Giants. Like, I have to see things compound for me to really get on board with it. I'm not just going to say that this team is going to come out here and compete for a Super Bowl, because I just don't see it. But yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, that dude's different. Like, we're talking,
He's a fun player.
We're talking Alvin Kamara type player right there. Like, he can just make stuff happen that other guys can't. It's fresh legs. Like, that's going to be fun to watch. Laporta, we'll see. The tight end position is not something that guys can just really plug in and get good right away. I mean, you saw that with Cole Kmet finally getting paid for the Bears. It took him time, you know. Or like guys like Dallas Goedert, it took him time to learn how to play the tight end position in the NFL, and that's been shown over and over again. Even Travis Kelce, you know, best tight end in the league, took him a couple years to really get acclimated and become who he is now. I think that the tight end position is just that tough to learn in the NFL. And so with Laporta, I think we'll see a lot of good things, but I'm not putting him high on my fantasy draft list yet, because it might not be till the end of the season for a guy like that to really get it going. But
He's a late round flyer for me,
Yeah.
for sure.
There are a lot of rookie tight ends this year that I think have a possibility to break through. Laporta being one of them. Obviously, there's a lot of reports about Dalton Kincaid. Looks great, and then Michael Mayer, he's going to do good as well. I'll go off a little bit of a tangent here, but Luke Musgrave, Packers tight end. I was pretty high on him, but initial reports are.
He's been doing better, but his blocking hasn't been great. I saw it today. He had a good block on Kenny Clark on a down block, so it's very early. They don't have pads on yet, and they don't have pads on, so we'll see what they can do in the pads come on. But I think he could be exciting as well. Just a lot of upside with the Packers, just because there's a lot of unknowns there, but there's also a lot of downside.
For me, Dalton, how do you pronounce it?
Dalton
Kincaid.
Yeah.
I remember watching him play USC, because it was like the special 4K Fox programming of like a late game, because it's a West Coast game.
Yeah.
And Dalton Rising, that dude's hilarious. Their quarterback there over in Utah. And they were wearing those really cool helmets, because they had that thing with their players that had passed away. And I just remember like that whole, just the atmosphere of that that game against Caleb Williams was so awesome. And I vividly remember how good Dalton Kincaid was. Like, he's one of those guys that can be like a George Kittle where he just plugs in and he's really good right away, especially with a team like Buffalo. And what's so cool about Buffalo is that they have a guy in Knox who's
He's a good tight
a
end.
good tight
They
end.
paid him last season,
And they paid it.
which is crazy.
But the problem I had with Knox is that he drops passes and he doesn't get open the way that other guys have. I was high on him the past 2 seasons and he underperformed. But I think a guy like Dalton Kincaid with Josh Allen, we could be looking at something special there. And I'm really high on Kincaid.
The upside is there for sure. And it's going to be exciting to see.
Going a little bit back to the Lions, I think they have the most interesting backfield in the NFL this year because they literally completely tore it up and made something from scratch. They drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, 12th overall, brought in Dave Montgomery, and they traded DeAndre Swift, and they let Jamal Williams walk. So I'm very excited to see how that plays out. I'm very high on Jahmyr Gibbs as well. I forget what we said. It was either you or you. The other one of you guys is very high on him as well.
Yeah.
He's special. I'm very high on David Montgomery. Just looking back last season, Jamal Williams, I'm pretty sure he led the league in touchdowns. Right?
For sure, yeah.
Definitely.
If he can even get because I think he had 18 touchdowns last season. If he can get 12, those are RB2 numbers. And he's currently going the 8th or 7th round. And getting a value like that and that late in the draft, you just can't really pass up on it in my eyes. And I think this offense is not going to step down in any capacity. I think they're going to be elite. So yeah, I love David Montgomery. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. And I'm very excited for this upcoming season for the Lions.
Don't gamble, kids.
Yeah. Moving on to my team. You can tell by the jersey I'm wearing, but Green Bay Packers. It's a new era. Jordan Love.
It is. It's exciting.
I'm in love with Love. I think I am.
Love and love.
Love and love. I'm going to probably try and get him this season. Just because it's a little bit of a homer pick, but I think he's going to do good. There's reports that he can't. He's looking great. Packers are honestly due for some bad luck, but I think Jordan Love is going to be a good player in the NFL.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
just.
He agrees, but
I mean, I'll be honest. When I watched him go in that game against Philly,
Yeah.
I was really hoping you guys would just roll with him from that moment on because I kind of fell in love with the kid too. He does have that special ability where you watch the arm talent and it's on full display the whole time. The kid, there's something special.
He's
about
got a
him.
slinging arm for sure.
But the problem I have is you had decrepit Aaron Rodgers that he was watching, right? He watched him win 2 MVPs and then watched him have an injury-riddled season, which I just think is crap to go off of. I think Aaron Rodgers is still top 3 quarterback in the NFL. But the things about Jordan Love that turned me off a little bit are his leadership ability. And obviously we're gonna see what he's like. But I feel like he's kind of one of those deadbeat guys that just is really, really, really talented. And I think he can be really good, but call me crazy, I see Jay Cutler talent from Jordan Love. I see a guy who has all the talent in the world, but we could see a little bit of a problem with interceptions. We could see a little bit of a problem with the attitude. And so it's awesome to see the Packers with a fresh start, but seriously, my comparison for Jordan Love going into the season is Jay Cutler. And I think that's what you guys are going to see too.
I'm hoping we don't see. I mean, Jay Cutler was a good quarterback, but we're accustomed to elite quarterback play. Realistically, for this season, what I was talking about with my brother last night, I would rather see Jordan Love look extremely promising and the Packers to lose 11 games than if we won 12 games and he was kind of just being dragged along by the team. Because then it's kind of not to drag through the mud here, but the 2018 Bears, Trubisky showed promise, but you could kind of tell right away he obviously wasn't going to be as good as the other guys in his class, and he was going to be someone who they didn't keep him around longer than they had to. But I'm hoping Jordan Love can kind of be someone where we see him after this year and we're like, oh yeah, for sure, this guy's the guy for the next 10 years who's going to be leading us. I don't want someone who's going to be like a Derek Carr kind of guy. That's just me being a fan because it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier with Daniel Jones. You're never going to win with him. You're never going to win with a Derek Carr. Jordan Love, obviously, we haven't seen a whole lot from him, but going back to what he said in the Philly game, when I saw that, I remember I was watching in the dorm with my roommate, Sean Ryan. Shout out to Sean. And when he hit that 10-yard slant to Christian Watson, I was jumping up and down, screaming uncontrollably. I was so excited. And I think he has so much arm talent that we haven't really seen yet. I think I haven't seen a whole lot of his deep ball, which he's got such a pretty throwing motion. And, like, I hate to use the Mahomes comparison because he's not going to be Patrick Mahomes. There's no chance. He could be a Jay Cutler. He is a gunslinger for sure. But he's got such just like a flick of the wrist 50 yards. So I think for that it's super exciting. It's nice to have someone ready to go when you lose Aaron Rodgers, who's, in my opinion, probably the most talented to ever play the game, up there with Mahomes. Mahomes might be past him, but just having Jordan Love, having him ready to go, mesh with these young guys, there's a lot of upside there. He isn't someone that I'm necessarily really targeting. He'd be super fun to have, but he's kind of like a late. I mean, in our league, he'd probably go a little earlier just because there's a lot of Wisconsin guys, Packer fans. In a normal league, you can probably get him pretty late because I would say the consensus around the league is it's kind of an unfair consensus, but people are kind of crapping on him,
Yeah.
So, but I think he does have some upside. The Matt LaFleur offense is shown to be pretty good. That might just be Aaron Rodgers, but we will see this year. I think he's worth a pick.
I agree. You briefly mentioned with that connection with Christian Watson, even though it was just one game, it looked to be pretty special. So I'm pretty high on Watson this season. He's got a 4th round ADP right now. I think he should honestly be going higher than that. And his receiving line on Prize Picks is 4.5 touchdowns on the season, which I think is frankly quite absurd. Because he scored, what was it, like 9 in 8 games?
Yeah, he had a great stretch there. Yeah.
Something different. And I just remember our group chat blowing up.
Yeah. Every time he scored, it would just be, oh my god.
And back when that week 1 game against the Vikings, when he drops his first pass, that's like that meaningful moment of his career right there. And you could just tell from the guy's demeanor he was ruined from that moment on. And I don't ever think Rodgers' trust waned in him. I honestly believe Rodgers believed in the kid all year. I think the kid was just so down on himself for not performing that it took that second jump in that Cowboys game, man.
That was
I was so excited for that kid. I had him in like one of my leagues out in Texas because I go to school at Baylor University, and in my league down there, I picked him up because I was like, you know what, why not? Like I was rooting for the guy, and so when you come from a school that was NDSU, right?
Yeah.
You come from that school, it's a huge leap to go from playing quarterbacks that are like 5'9", 5'10" white guys that they were the greatest thing ever in North Dakota, but then you transition, you're playing your top athletes in the country. So, and I mean, I love him too.
I feel like I think just going back to last year, I feel like everybody kind of had a piece of Watson in their mind. Just kind of like he's got the upside. I remember last year, I was just going through kind of the top 20 receivers this year. I think I had about 7 of them on my roster at one point. 3 or 4 of them were rookies, but I cut Garrett Wilson. That was really bad. I cut Christian Watson the week before. He blew up against the Cowboys. That was really bad.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
I picked him up.
But yeah, it's super fun with these second-year receivers. Watson should be up there with Wilson and Olave. And I would say I think Wilson's definitely got the most upside out of them 3, but Watson has top 10 upside too if Jordan Love can get that connection to work.
I agree.
Call me crazy, but like the Watson-Dobbs duo is kind of like a Jordy and Cobb,
They can grow into something for sure. They're a lot of fun. It's an exciting time.
Got Jane Reed too.
Mm-hmm.
He's being utilized in camp. There was a little pretty end-around play. I don't know if you saw.
I did see that. Yeah.
That was the thing about
He's got a lot of he's a quick, twitchy guy. Like I remember I was texting my buddy Hayden Nelson. Shout out to you if you're watching this. But when I was watching his highlights, I'm not a super good football analyst, but I saw a lot of Antonio Brown him. He's not going to be Antonio Brown, but he's got that kind of, he's a 5'10", 5'11" guy. Really quick off the line, has a lot of good speed. So I'm excited for where this Green Bay offense is headed. I think they have a chance to win the North this year. They have a chance. It's a very open division, but yeah, just kind of like talking about with the Lions, with their pedigree the past 3 years, like, do they have it in them? The Packers have been the dominators of this division for most of the past 30 years for two good reasons, but I think if they can put some strings together and attach two things together, I think they definitely can win the North.
The culture of NFL teams and organizations is so overlooked every year. And then finally, as the season gets going and you see how teams are performing, that's when you start to hear about it more. You know, you're like, oh, look at the Eagles. Like, Sirianni's got these guys playing. It's like that. The players in those locker rooms know how they feel before we even see anything hit the field. And like you said, you have the pedigree there in Green Bay with a team that they're used to winning. They're used to being on the top of this division. That shouldn't change. I mean, you saw them come alive there at the end of the season last year too. I personally thought you guys were going to push for that playoffs.
I did too.
I think I said that game against the Cowboys before the game started. Like, if y'all win this is something that y'all might make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, the Lions come in and they ruin the day for you guys. But I see a team here that has a defense that was one of the best in the league while being injured and whatnot, returning. You have new blood in Jordan Love, people that don't have tape on this kid. So it's up to him really to jump off the start and just really, really get it going for you guys. You guys could totally win this division. Just as I think my Bears can win it too.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's super open. So
where do you see the backfield leading? Because obviously Aaron Jones is a stud. Dylan has proven that he can handle full workload if he needs to, but obviously they're still both there. Dylan has a much later ADP. Jones is still, I would say he's an elite option. Maybe just outside of that top tier, along with Joe Mixon, Najee Harris. But what do you think?
I think it depends on how good Jordan Love is. Last year and prior years, people were super high on A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones just because I would pretty confidently say now they're probably the best running back duo in the league. They're up there in the top three. They're both two very talented running backs. Aaron Jones, he's such a unique running back to me because he was, a fifth-round pick. He's been in the league for 7 years now, and he's been good every year he's been in the league. Like, I remember in his early years, we were kind of like, give this dude the ball. He's amazing. So I think right now, if they both two stay healthy, I think Aaron Jones is a solid RB2 with upside. A.J. Dillon's probably a flex play for me. But I think if either of them get injured, I think immediately they're both RB1s just because the LaFleur offense. I think A.J. Dillon is an underrated receiver. He's someone who, when you think about him, you just think of a bulldozer type running back, I remember his first year or second year, that snow game against the Titans, he really got unleashed and he just was running everybody over. It was the Derrick Henry show, but it was really A.J. Dillon. So I think those two have a very good chance to be fantasy relevant this year, barring Jordan Love being horrible, which I don't think. I think his floor this year is probably like a QB2 that can support a good offense. So that's kind of where I'm at with that backfield.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked up the Packers depth chart for the running back position for the first time. I had never heard of this kid,
Lou Nichols. He's from Central Michigan. Shout out Bobby Ball. Bobby Ball was a huge fan of him when he was there.
This dude averaged 5 yards a carry over the course of his career. That's not something to just like be like, oh.
I think he was the leading rusher one year in FBS or FCS.
Why not this kid? You know, like Aaron Jones is getting up there in age.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen there. I mean, injuries occur. We're not going to base our fantasy off of that, but Lou Nichols can definitely jump. Who's it?
Patrick Taylor. He's someone who's an exciting player, but
you can jump him in the depth chart.
Yeah.
I think the Packers know what they have with Patrick Taylor. So if anyone's going to make the roster, I think it'll be Lou Nichols.
Yeah. So I'd look out for this kid. Why not? You know, Lou Nichols is third.
if any of them get hurt, I think he's definitely rosterable. So
Yeah. But just back to that, when you were talking about A.J. Dillon, I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to shout out one of our listeners, Jack Ockwood. On that night, we were all at one of our best friends' houses back in high school, and Jack was down. I don't remember the exact points in fantasy championship. He has Devontae Adams, and Adams got him the win that night.
I think he had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He went crazy.
We were all going nuts for it.
That was such a great
awesome.
era of Packers football, man. That 2020 season still pains me.
Those are the good old days.
I'll just be in my feels at night thinking about that team.
Yeah, it's not nice to look back on those times sometimes, but they were fun.
At least you have them.
You got the Andy
Yeah.
Bernard
I
thing.
watched 2013 highlights with my team getting beat by you guys.
Just watch double doink highlights.
Forget it.
But yeah, kind of similar to what Luke said. I like it. Jones is an army too. Dylan, I don't know if he's a flex play, to be honest. I'm excited to see how LaFleur handles that backfield, especially with Jordan Love at quarterback. I want to see if he takes a much more rushing heavy offensive role in terms of using Jordan Love in the offense. But I mean, it's kind of confusing because Jordan Love's been a Packer for 4 years now, right?
He's one of the veterans in that locker room, for being honest.
He's never really had an opportunity to show himself except against Kansas City. But
And a little bit against Philly.
yeah, but it's going to be exciting to see. All right, we're going to move on to Ben's team, Chicago Bears. Justin Fields. I'm going to let you start off with Justin Fields because I want you to share your thoughts before.
My very humble opinion, Justin Fields is an MVP candidate. Hear me out. Okay? You're looking at a team that bolstered their offensive line, learned their identity. Yes, they have lots of problems. This team is not going to be contending for a Super Bowl this year. We'll get that off of everyone's mind, even though it was on no one's mind except mine. But just, he's so talented. What was he, 4th in QBR those last 8 games of the year? You want to look at trends, this kid was trending up. As a Packer fan, you got to be a little bit worried.
Yeah.
What concerns me definitely was the fact that they rushed him, I think, 160 times. That number I want to be cut in half, maybe. And so that may dip his fantasy value a little bit. But you bring in a guy like DJ Moore and the stuff we've been hearing from camp and the videos they keep posting of him just connecting with that man. I mean,
How's that been? Has it been really positive?
yes. So I was reading up on it yesterday, one of the beat reporters there in Chicago. It's just every time I look at it, it's DJ Moore, DJ Moore, DJ Moore. And so this is a connection that I see being very, very strong throughout the season. I mean, obviously I'm a Bears fan, I'm biased, but it's not going to be. I hate the fact that people are using the Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen connection. DJ Moore is not that type of player. He's not that good. But I'm talking DJ Moore can have one of those seasons where he has 1,200, 1,300 yards, heck of a year. Fields is feeding the guy. I really like that connection there in Chicago. And like I said, I think Fields can have a Jalen Hurts jump, and he can be. I personally believe he can be better than Jalen Hurts, just because I think his passing ability exceeds Jalen Hurts. The potential is all there. It's just really up to the kid playing at the next level. So we'll see.
I'm going to say this. I think you can get mad at me for saying this, but I think Fields is a better fantasy quarterback than he is an actual NFL quarterback now. But down the line, he can be great. And in fantasy football, everyone knows how important rushing quarterbacks are. We've seen it in the past. Lamar Jackson single-handedly pretty much won me my championship with one half team. That was a great year. Last year, Jalen Hurts, he would have finished as the quarterback one if he had not gotten injured. This season, I think Justin Fields has a chance to be the quarterback one in fantasy. As crazy as that sounds. But if he rushes for 150 yards a game like he did in that one stretch last year, there's no one else who's going to put up points like that in the league today. Besides maybe Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, it pains me to say this, but I think, Ben, there's some legitimacy to MVP campaign for Fields. I'm a huge Packer fan, so I'm going to shout out Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator. I think when you look back on Matt LaFleur's first season, we went to the NFC Championship, and it was kind of, I think every Packer fan would really say, like, our defense was great, but our offense was kind of fluky. We were winning those kind of anyway or anywhere it could fall kind of games. And then when you look at the next year, we just dominated everybody. And I would say even you would say that probably the best team Rodgers has been on since the Super Bowl team. And that offense was probably the best offense I've seen as a Packer fan for Rodgers. So I think a second year in Getsy's system for Fields, there's so much upside for him. As much as I hate to say it, because you see online all the time that Fields is a running back and he can't throw. Like, Fields is a cannon. Like, that, he's just got to hone in on the accuracy stuff and just other intricate things for being a quarterback, which year 3, right? I think he can definitely hone in on that. And then you bring in a DJ Moore. I know you said not to compare it to Diggs, but I think DJ Moore, he's been in the league, 6 years now?
Yeah.
Cam Newton was pretty good his rookie year and maybe his second year, but he hasn't had good quarterback play.
True.
Fields still has to show that he can be a poised passer, I think. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm super high on DJ Moore this year. I think we didn't even mention Darnell Mooney. He was someone who I took early last year. I thought Fields might take a jump, but as a passer, he took a little jump, I'd say. He wasn't great last year as a passer, but I think there's room for that. They probably have a top 5 receiving core, I would say now. Just with those 3 guys, those are all proven players. So yeah, I think Fields could be I disagree with you partially. I think he could be a better quarterback than he is a fantasy quarterback. He's going to be a great fantasy quarterback, don't get me wrong. The Jalen Hurts comparison that Ben made, I think it's very, very legitimate. Because I remember we were talking about it, and Ben was super vocal about it too. Like, Jalen Hurts is not a good quarterback before this year. And he just absolutely came out of nowhere. Like, Ben can admit it. Like, he was wrong. Like, you just couldn't see anything out of that. We're in Milwaukee, so that's what that is. But
I will say this. There's no evidence of this happening, but I love Jalen Hurts before he broke out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, for fantasy-wise, I feel like there were a lot of people who had kind of pegged this out for Jalen Hurts. And then same thing for Fields. I mean, I didn't really think he was going to be fantasy relevant last year, and obviously had 244 weeks in a row. I had him on my team for the second half of last year, which was a lot of fun just to see him running around and all that. But I think there's no chance he runs for as many yards this year just because they got to be smart with him, and he's got to be smart about his career. Right. But yeah, there's a lot of upside for that Chicago offense. It's an exciting time. They drafted Darnell Wright at 10. I saw a report about him that he was actually on the wrong workout plan, and he burned 16 pounds instead of what he was supposed to as a lineman. So he came in and crushed all their testing for him. So that's a very good first step for him.
Yeah. He took the wide receivers conditioning test.
Yeah.
He crushed that.
Wow.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
From a right tackle, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And you got Braxton Jones, who has a year under his belt. I don't know. This team, it's obviously a huge question mark.
Who's on the O-line? I know they got Darnell Wright.
You guys still have the center, Sam Mustipher?
No, finally. Oh my gosh. Sam Mustipher, garbage. Like, I don't think there is a worse football player I've ever watched. I don't know if the kid was just like the nicest human on the planet, but the fact that he was in the NFL for a couple years is besides the point.
There's a lot of those guys. Yeah.
Whatever, Sam Mustipher sucks. No, we're much better on the offensive line because we got that guy from we got Nate Davis from Tennessee, which I think is an underrated signing at the guard position.
Yeah.
We finally get Cody Whitehair back to the center position, which he was always made to play.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a guy in Tevin Jenkins who showed some promise last year.
Was he a tackle or guard?
Guard. And so I think it's an offensive line that is going to be vastly improved.
For sure.
Because that was probably the worst offensive line I have maybe ever seen in my life.
Yeah, they were bad for sure.
It was like Obama's immigration policy. But no, for real. I mean, it's a team that's going to be fun. I'm excited to watch them. I mean, we all watched the Bears last year. I think they're a team that could be one of those like lose really close games, should be in prime time because they're just that fun to watch. And so I'm excited for it.
Going back to DJ Moore, I think he's going to be a guy who's going to get a think you mentioned a lot. Like he's going to go for like 1,300 yards, 1,200 yards. But I don't know if the touchdowns are going to be that for him. I think a guy who's going to score a lot more touchdowns is Cole Kmet. Money talks. He signed a big contract. He earned it. They also brought Robert Tonyan. But I think Kmet is going to be a tight end that I'm going to be targeting often if I can't get my hands on Travis Kelce or T.J. Hawkinson type of guy.
Yeah.
Later rounds, I would say. I think he's going around like 95 for ADP.
Okay.
But Cole Kmet is a guy who I'm going to be targeting.
I think one thing for sure to mention is last year with the Eagles, you saw with Jalen Hurts at the goal line and inside the 10. I mean, they're the best QB team of all time. And then you got the QB power runs. I think we could see that from the Bears inside the 10. So Fields could get a lot of rushing touchdowns again this year. So that kind of boosts up his rushing upside and just overall fantasy upside. So that's exciting for the upside portion of that offense as well. Like they could take a huge step because Getsy's an adaptive coordinator. He's someone who's been in the LaFleur system and they've got a lot of upside.
I think Getsy's the guy that gets a job next year.
Oh, dude, I was so pissed when we lost him.
Yeah.
Because he is such a good coach.
He's been everything the Bears needed, and it's going to be so tough to see him walk away next year. Because I'm making that prediction right now is that Luke Getsy will be the head coach next season.
The Bears light it up. That will very much likely happen.
I'm excited for week 1.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I don't think I've been this excited for week 1 since probably first LaFleur era. Honestly, because the expectations were so high.
I feel like I say that every year. I'm so excited. This is the most excited I've ever been for a season. But
yeah, maybe 2 years ago with the Last Dance for the Packers, or the supposed Last Dance, that was super exciting. But I don't know, I'm so excited for week 1 in Chicago.
Yeah, me too. And we're going to move on to the final NFC North team.
Boo.
Minnesota Vikings. We all hit the Vikings around here, but they have some great players.
They do.
Arguably the 101 in most drafts, Justin Jefferson. I think he's probably the safest player in fantasy football this year, besides maybe Travis Kelce. Because you pretty much know he's going to go for 1,400 yards.
Minimum,
if he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Just depends on how much he gets in the end zone. Kirk Cousins. I watched Quarterback, the Netflix show. Gave me a lot more respect for the guy. I didn't know he was dealing with all that stuff. I don't know if you guys watched it.
I didn't watch all of it. I saw a lot on social media that people gained a lot of respect for him. So good for Kirk.
He was pushing through. I had him on my team last year. He's a very reliable guy, and I don't see that changing this season. I think he's going to be a good back-end QB1 to mid QB2 for those of you in super flex leagues. He's going to be a guy who pretty much just goes out and gets you 16 points a week. Arguably, maybe more or less, he'll boom for 25 once or twice. But yeah, you pretty much know what you're getting from Kirk Cousins.
Hard to mess it up when you have Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
That throw that he made against the Bills that should have been intercepted.
Oh.
And Justin Jefferson probably made the greatest catch I've ever seen in my entire life.
That was a great catch.
That just shows you where the Vikings are at. I mean, Kirk Cousins, sure.
He fits into that category of he's a good player. You're never going to win a Super Bowl with him.
No, exactly. I mean, this Vikings team, did they get better?
They lost some guys on defense. They lost to Darius Smith. They lost Adam Thielen, replaced him with Addison.
Addison's moving fast this year.
He is moving very, very fast.
Hopefully he's picking up to the speed of the NFL.
Yeah.
Because he likes to drive his car pretty quick. But, no, this Vikings team is, they were so lucky last year. Can we just, put that out there?
They had a lot of
This
those
team,
kind of, yeah.
I was so happy when the Giants beat them in that playoff
Oh,
game.
me too.
That was hilarious because it's everything that they deserved.
Yeah.
And so I don't believe in Kirk Cousins. I believe in Justin Jefferson, obviously. I don't really believe in Madison. He's getting up there too. I mean, for running backs, he's getting up there in age. He's been Dalvin Cook's backup for the whole time. I don't know. I'm not high on the Vikings. I see them finishing last in the division personally.
Yeah, you go. You got it.
Madison is probably the most confusing player in his football for me this season, just because of his role for the past, I'd say, 5 or so years. He's just been known as like a rock solid backup, and that's all he's been. And now he's getting the chance to shine. But if he gets that chance, they don't bring someone like we kind of talked about earlier in the podcast, like Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Greg Blount. I think he's going to put up numbers that can easily affect your fantasy team, like a running back 2 type of season. With Jordan Addison, Vroom Vroom. Sorry. I think he's going to do good as well. Because Thielen, he ran. I think he was top 5 in the league in routes run last season. And that's not just going to go away, especially with Kevin O'Connell. Addison is a good player if he can. I did see that Addison, when he did do his speeding, I think there was a report that he had his dog in the car because he was trying to get into a vet.
What?
He was trying to rush it to a vet. I think. I don't know if
Is
that's
that a
true.
real report?
I think it was a real report.
I did hear about that as well, but still no excuse going 140.
He's going 100 miles over the speed limit, but we'll start off that. Other news: KJ Osborne, pretty much the wide receiver 3 on that team. I'm seeing reports about Jalen Naylor. I'm forgetting where he went to college. I think it was like Michigan State or something.
Hey, you're telling me you were pretty high on him. I haven't heard a whole lot about him, but
I think he's getting in over KJ Osborne this season as a wide receiver 3. I saw some reports on Twitter saying that he's doing pretty phenomenal in camp. So why not target him as a later on flyer over KJ Osborne? I don't see why.
KJ Osborne, so I had Justin Jefferson in my other league last year, and oh man, I hated watching Vikings games, and you'd see those dreadlocks come down the ball, and I'm like, let's go, Jake Jettas! And then it's KJ Osborne's like, oh my gosh, I don't get me started with that guy, but no, I again was doing like a little bit of background research on this Vikings running back situation, and Madison, like you said, I mean, he's complete question mark, was super good as a backup. But they have this kid that they drafted, Dwayne McBride. He was UAB's running back, absolute stud for them. I mean,
He's great.
He over his career, he averaged 7.3 yards per rush. That's pretty
wow.
good. Really freaking good. Last season, he had 1,700 rushing yards, 19 rushing touchdowns. Didn't really catch the ball. He only had 2 catches last year. But just the fact that this guy's a pure, just run through your face kind of guy, it seems like, at least. I really like to see that. He was the Conference USA Player of the Year last year. So look out for that guy. See if during camp he makes any noise. I think that's a guy that could definitely maybe push for some carries during the year. I don't see Madison being a bell cow, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't really see that.
So I mean, just keep an eye on the Vikings backfield situation. I mean, it can't hurt to roster a guy like Dwayne McBride if you start to hear things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think
look into that.
Yeah, I think I kind of a little different from you guys on that because when you think about Alexander Madison, obviously he was probably a top 5 handcuff the past few years. Just thinking about it, like whenever Dalvin Cook was out, and that was pretty frequently, he was always like you threw him in there, he's an RB1, RB2, high end RB2, RB1. So I think he has a chance to take over that backfield. Obviously, just having Dwayne McBride. So I think I'm a little higher on him than both of you guys are. Especially if you're going to go into this year with like the kind of no RB strategy or low RB, just drafting a lot of receivers. I think once his ADP, 5th, 6th round around there,
Right around
4th, 5th round. I mean, I think he has great value there because he has a lot of upside. And if you can stash Dwayne McBride with him as well, I think you have a backfield that as long as they don't bring anyone in, they should be pretty productive. They have Darisaw, Brian O'Neill, center's name, forget his name. Yeah, Garrett Bradbury. So they have a solid offensive line. So Alexander Madison, for me, is someone who I might be targeting depending on how drafts will go.
Last guy I want to talk about is TJ Hawkinson. I think we briefly mentioned him earlier, but I'm very high on TJ Hawkinson this season, especially with Thielen leaving, opening up those targets. I mentioned Jordan Addison might get both of those, but Hawkinson towards the end of last year, he was putting up like Mark Andrews 2021 numbers. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, he was having a great year.
I will say those Vikings jerseys are clean. Those new ones. I'm excited to see Hopkinson rocking those. I mean, yeah, he's a great player. Again, tight end position takes a long time to really get to your potential. So I can totally see him taking another step forward and being even better than he already was last year. I mean, I think you have him solid at what, tight end 3 or 4 a year ranking.
Tight end
So
3.
He was the tight end 2 last year, and he was super good prospect coming out, so he should be a top 5 guy at that position for sure.
All right. I think that pretty much wraps it up for the first edition of Primetime.
Let's go.
It's good.
We got one in the books.
It's a lot of fun. I think we were recording for a while, but I can talk about this stuff all day. So
yeah. We hope you guys enjoyed it. I mean, we had so much fun talking about it.
I had a great time. So.
We'll be back soon. Sooner than later. Take care, everyone.